noticed by listening to the two officials, there's a lot of turf back. Whose is this? Is this exclusive or is it not exclusive? It doesn't matter whose it is. As long as the government of Sri Lanka gets its act together and does what needs to be done so that exports can thrive. I am coming to the picture with that objective. Whether the Foreign Affairs Ministry has any legal mandate or not is immaterial to me. The only thing that I am interested in is ensuring that this government does what it has to do so that we can make the dreams of our people reality. We went around the country telling the people who ended up voting for us that we will change so that they can have a better life. The fact of the matter is not whether you're sitting at the EDP or whether you're sitting at the Commerce Department, whether you're sitting at some embassy, whether you're sitting at the BOI, or whether you're sitting at the Foreign Office, because all these people, as the agents of the government, are ultimately responsible to the government of the day, and the government of the day is ultimately responsible to the people. So, it is not a criticism, but a necessary condition for us to succeed. It is not sufficient, but it is necessary that we have to all work together. It is also not the input that matters. It is the output that matters. It is not whether you brought 200 delegations to Sri Lanka. It does not matter whether you had 17 lunch appointments with business people. What matters is what was the outcome. That is what matters. What matters is whether the fruit and vegetable exporters are able to clear their fruits before it gets spoiled from some port in India. I'll start with that. Because I hear at times, even though we have signed agreements, as the Director General very correctly pointed out, multiple agreements we have signed. What is the point in signing these multiple agreements if ultimately the exporter is not able to export here his or her bananas or whatever strawberries that they would like? Whose responsibility is that? Now, to take an example, export inspection agency. Do we have an export inspection agency, Mr. Chairman? Yeah, for fruits. Now, India has something called the Export Inspection Council, correct? Do they recognize the inspections that the government of Sri Lanka has signed off on? Certain institutions they recognize, the chairman says. Certain institutions they don't, he says. So what have we done about making sure there is mutual recognition of the institutions? Now, is it working? Go ahead.
What I said was basically the exporters thing, national opening control unit, that's for the agriculture sector. We are working on that. Actually, the logo establishing the first time, that's good news. So once NOCU is established, it's the third party certification that we are giving, you can review the cost and also the NOCU acceptance will be.
What I want is for you to make sure that there is mutual recognition. I had no point in setting up this agency or the other agency if it doesn't do its job. Right? If our fruit inspection certificate is not accepted in Chennai, then you got to do something about it. Right? I am just giving an example, Mr. Chairman. Right? So, whether, whose job it is, I don't really care. Whoever takes the lead and runs with it is doing it not for any private benefit, but for the benefit of the people of this country. That is what we need to understand. Right? And looking at this whole new sector, for me, almost a layman, I see multiple areas that can be improved. First of all, a country's economic policy and foreign policy must be coordinated. You can't have economic policy with an export focus and foreign policy that says, who cares about the EU? They are trying to conspire, and the national interest of this country is being compromised by the European Union and the US. So obviously we are cross purposes. We can't be at cross purposes. To me, unless we align our economic policies and foreign policies, we can say bye-bye to our export trade. Now, the first paper that has been really a scientific paper on GSP Plus has just been published. The garment industry in Sri Lanka and the removal of GSP Plus by the European Union. Has anyone seen this? I don't know if any of the officials saw this either. This is in the World Economy 2015, this month. It is a technical paper. Not somebody said 200 factories closed down. Not somebody said 2,000 people lost jobs. It is an empirical, data-based, technical, scientific paper published in a very well-respected peer-reviewed journal. Now it says that the loss of GSP Plus had a huge negative impact on the people of this country. That poverty reduction targets couldn't be met, GDP growth fell, obviously exports fell. So the quote-unquote punishment that the European Union was, or whoever it was trying to impose on the government of Sri Lanka on non-economic matters, ultimately was felt not by the government. The government didn't change anything of the day. Government of the day didn't do anything to rectify the matter. What happened was poverty increased in Sri Lanka, or the reduction of poverty became that much more difficult because of GSP Plus, removal of the GSP Plus facility. So, the good news is that your new government is looking at this whole thing differently. And let me tell you that I personally signed the letter on the 1st of October that was sent out to the High Representative of the EU stating that we are working on the issues that was raised in the letter sent to G.L. Peris, Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time, dated June 2010. And that, instead of replying that letter, Honorable Peris thought it was fit to issue a press release. And the then governor of the central bank thought it fit to say we don't need GSP plus. There is no impact on this country and we will not be compromising our national security or whatever it was he used at the time, and that we don't need it. So, for various political reasons, and human rights is not politics, human rights is not European, human rights is global and it is local. We've talked about human rights in this country for hundreds of years, centuries. Right? So let us not hide behind various imaginary enemies of the country and not do what the country has to do to protect the rights of all citizens of the country. We look at this differently. Like I said, the day we got the resolution in Geneva approved, we have written to the European Union. And the Director General of Commerce and her staff, who's been working on this with a lot of dedication over the years, will now have the opportunity, hopefully, to get this GSP plus benefit brought back to the exporters who can benefit from it. So, in all honesty, I think by maybe before the end of the year, we will be making the formal application, and hopefully by middle next year, we will hopefully be able to regain GSP plus. So the point I'm trying to make is that if the government does not have its policies aligned, there is no point in promoting, right? And like what the Director General said, Hamlet without the Prince of Denmark, right? But I think the parallels have been a mainstay and has been, even in difficult times, exporting and holding this country from sinking. Of course, the neo-slavery, where we export our men and women to the Middle East, has really been the main earner of foreign exchange. As you know, the parallels begin about 5 billion, and included in that is an import expenditure of about 2.5 billion. So net is only about 2.5 billion. And neo-slavery brings in 7 billion, 8 billion. So we should really be ashamed of ourselves. What we ought to be doing is to make sure that we are able to cut through all the red tape, to enter into agreements that matter, clear out the problems that we may have, and make it work. What is the Sri Lanka-Pakistan Free Trade Agreement? How many people benefit from that? what is the South Asia Free Trade Agreement for? Who benefits from that? This is the chamber, Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. Can somebody put up their hand, his or her hand, and tell me I benefit from the Sri Lanka Pakistan FTA or the SAFTA? It's good to have in your library to show that I have done all this work. But the ones that you can leverage have not been delivering. And that is what we need to do. So in terms of economic diplomacy, of course there are various technical explanations. The best one I like is from Australia, where it says it's about the 4 pillars of trade, investment, jobs and business. And I think it's self-explanatory. The last one, business, I want to try and see whether the Foreign Office can focus more on that, is to take Sri Lankan businesses overseas. How can we create more Dilmas, more Damros, more Brandix, more Amantes and so on? How can we work together? Let's keep the turf wars aside. If there's a commercial officer in the foreign ministry or the building that houses the embassy, how do they work together? The ambassadors who I meet in Colombo, are rather, they have a singular focus. What is that? Economics, trade, investment. Every time you meet an ambassador, they don't talk about cultural exchanges. They don't talk about, the niceties. Of course they do, but by and large, it's about an investment opportunity. It's about a project. It's about trade. It's how perhaps one of their companies may be subjected to some dispute, how to settle that. So as foreign service officers, our ambassadors, our high commissioners, our first secretaries, our commercial people should speak the same language. So as a start, what we have done at the Foreign Office is try to talk about it, get the technical words more comfortable to be spoken among the people at that office, and then our missions overseas. We are going to create kind of a dynamic platform so that information can be shared by all the foreign office staff that are stationed around the world. We also must be able to, I'm glad that the Director General told me there is a monthly report, which I would request that she send to us also. To have some kind of monitoring and evaluation. The information that the chairman of EDB said, he has market research. He said he has. What kind of market research do you have? How does it become available to the interested parties? Is it on your website? But if it is on your website, it becomes public information and everybody has it. When everybody has it, there is no competitive advantage. I mean, there are two sides to it. What about the basic information? When an ambassador or a high-level representative of the country makes a presentation overseas, does he or she have the right information to make that presentation? What is going on in Sri Lanka, not in 2013, but what is going on in Sri Lanka in September of 2015? So all those things I think must come together in order to make sure that the ultimate objective of all of government working together in tandem should be for the benefit of the people of this country. Right? So that's all I want to say. But rest assured that our Minister, Honorable Mangala Samarweera, and I will do whatever it is necessary in the Foreign Ministry in the months and years ahead to make sure that our network of officers across the world and also our policies that are crucial to ensure that exports grow would be looked at not just favorably but with a lot of importance and urgency. With that, I will stop for the moment and I guess you can ask me questions during the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for making that